Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Kiran Gupta from Faculty of Law, University of Delhi. Today we are going to discuss about module on women and law relating to marriage under paper Women and Law and subject Women Studies. The objective of today's module is to know the law of marriage applicable to various religious communities, to highlight modern changes in the ancient practices pertaining to marriage among various religious groups, and to study the law of marriage available for inter-religious marriage and as an option to religious law in case of intra-religious marriage. Friends, in India, a study of family law as compared to other civil laws is unique and display a lack of uniformity in their application. A variety of different laws are in vogue and application depends on multiple factors like the religion, and tribe of the parties, domicile, community, sect within the community, etc. These laws had their roots either in religion or were deeply influenced by personal laws which owed their allegiance to religion and customs. Hindus were governed by the Shastric and the customary laws, depending upon the region and the specific school of community a particular family belongs to. Muslims followed the Muslim law based on pre-Islamic customs prevalent in Arabia as modified by the Quran, Hadith and other sources of Islamic law. The Parsis had their own customary law following the advent of British. Two major Christian communities came into being in India, East India Christians and that followed the European customs, and the native Christians who were either converts or descendants of converts of the non-Christian communities, mainly the Hindus and the Muslims, and they followed their distinct customary laws which were also given judicial recognitions. Jews were governed by their own customary laws. The law of follower of some of these religious communities are now codified in the form of statutes, while for others it is still uncodified or partly codified and partly uncodified. Friends, though Part 4 of the Constitution, which deals with directives, principles of state policy, provides that the state should endeavour to enact the uniform civil code applicable throughout India, and a number of judicial decisions advising the state to enact a uniform family law for all irrespective of religion. The uniformity of has not yet been brought into in the family law. Followers of different religious communities are still governed by different laws in these matters, though there are some laws enacted by the legislature which are applicable to all irrespective of religion. In this module, we are going to discuss the family law relating to marriage applicable in India to different religious communities, along with the different laws applicable on the basis of religion of the parties. There is an optional law, namely the Special Marriage Act 1954, which is available to all as an alternative to their personal law. Marriage is seen as an institution of people coming together under the promise of spending a lifetime with each other. Every religion is under the firm faith that a marriage is a permanent union of men and women. However, with a view to provide relief to a spouse in distress, the law in almost all the countries of the world has provided for certain matrimonial remedies. According to a Hindu view of life, marriage is a sacrament. Being a sacramental union, it has to be solemnized by performing essential ceremonies, either shastric or customary. It was considered permanent union which cannot be dissolved. Hindu law prohibited marriage outside the caste and marriage within the gotra. Child marriages were permitted. A Hindu male was permitted to have any number of wives, but a Hindu female was not permitted to have more than one husband. Even though widows' remarriage was not permitted, this position continued till 1955. However, the marriage of widows was made permissible in 1856 by the Hindu Widows Remarriage Act, and child marriages were restrained by the Child Marriage Restraint Act 1929. In 1955, the Hindu Marriage Act was enacted, which came into force on 18th of May 1955. Act is comprehensive statute relating to law of marriage applicable to all Hindus domiciled in India except the scheduled tribe Hindus. The main object of the Hindu Marriage Act was to modify, codify, and unify law relating to marriage among Hindus. Section 2 of the Hindu Marriage Act defines Hindu as a person who is a Hindu in any of its forms or developments, or a Buddhist, or a Sikh, or a Jain by religion, by birth, or by conversion. The Act retained the sacramental nature of the Hindu marriage by providing that a Hindu marriage has to be solemnized in accordance with the customary rites and ceremonies of either bride or the groom. The Hindu marriage solemnized by the performance of Shastric ceremonies and rites as prescribed by Hindu law, or the customary ceremonies and rites in substitution of Shastric ceremonies which prevail in the caste or community to which one of the parties belong, is treated as a valid marriage. If the marriage is not properly solemnized by performing all necessary ceremonies, it will not be valid. For the performance of marriage under the Act, both the parties to the marriage must be Hindus. The Act prescribes 5 conditions for a Hindu marriage. The first is monogamy for both male and female. Second is mental capacity for the marriage. The third is age for the marriage, that is 21 years for the male and 18 years for the female. Fourth and fifth relates to prohibited relations for the purpose of marriage, but these are subject to contrary custom or uses governing each of them, permitting a marriage between the two. Registration of marriage is not compulsory as per the Hindu Marriage Act. To be a valid marriage, it must be properly solemnized. Registration will neither validate or otherwise invalid marriage or invalidate an otherwise valid marriage. But by a judgment pronounced by the court in Seema versus Ashwani, the Supreme Court has directed the government to enact law for compulsory registration of marriage so as to protect the right of female party to the marriage. The court observed that in large number of cases, some unscrupulous persons are denying the existence of marriage, taking advantage of the situation that in most of the states there is no official record of the marriage. The court also observed that compulsory registration of marriage would be a step in the right direction for the prevention of child marriage, which is still prevalent in many parts of the country. In the opinion of the court, the registration of marriage would come within the ambit of vital statics in List 2, Entry 30 in the 7th Schedule of the Constitution of India. The Hindu Marriage Act 1955 has introduced major changes in the earlier Hindu laws for the protection of the rights of the women. It has prohibited second marriage or any subsequent marriage, that is bigamy by husband, during the subsistence of the earlier marriage, thereby protecting the interest of the wife. The bigamous marriage is void and penal under the Hindu Marriage Act, and the penalty is provided under section 494 and 495 of the Indian Penal Code, which is 7-year imprisonment under 494 and 10 years imprisonment under 495. Even by conversion from Hinduism to any other religion, the person who is already married as per the Hindu Marriage Act is prohibited to marry so long as the earlier marriage subsists. Another marriage cannot be performed, not even under any other personal law, and on such marriage being performed, the person would be liable to be prosecuted for the offence of bigamy under section 494 of the Indian Penal Code. This has been laid down by the Supreme Court in Sarla Mudgal versus Union of India in 1995, reaffirmed in Lily Thomas versus Union of India in 2000. In these cases, the Hindu husbands change their religion to Islam, which permits a male to have 4 wives and marry again. The Supreme Court held all such marriages illegal and punishable under 494. Child marriages are always harmful for the girl by inhibiting her physical and mental growth. The Hindu Marriage Act 1955 prescribes marriage age as one of the conditions for marriage, though it has not provided that such a marriage will be invalid or void. Such a marriage is punishable under section 18 of the Hindu Marriage Act with imprisonment or fine or both. In 2006, Prohibition of Child Marriages Act was enacted, which is applicable to all irrespective of religion. As per this Act of 2006, the child marriage is voidable at the option of child party to the marriage, which he or she can exercise within 2 years from not remaining a child, that is for the girl between 18 to 20 years of age and for boys from 21 to 23 years of age. The Act of 2006 protects the rights of the female party to a child marriage for claiming maintenance and residence from the husband, or if he is a minor from his relatives, and it is irrespective of the fact who was a child at the time of marriage. The female herself might be a child, or the male party to it may be a child and the female was a major, still she is entitled to maintenance from the husband. The Act declares children born out of such marriage to be legitimate for all purposes. In certain special cases, the Act of 2006 provides that the child marriage will be null and void. These situations are specified in Section 12 of the Act. The court is given power to issue injunction prohibiting child marriages, violation of which will result in a void marriage under Section 13 and 14 of the 2006 Act. A male adult means above 18 years of age, contracting a child marriage is liable to be punished with rigorous imprisonment, which may extend to 2 years, and shall also be liable to fine, which may extend to 1 lakh rupees, unless he proves that he has reason to believe that the marriage was not a child marriage. The women cannot be punished under the provision of the Act 2006. Marriage in violation of degrees of prohibited relationship and subpoena relationship will be void under Section 11 of the Hindu Marriage Act and punishable under Section 18 of the Hindu Marriage Act. Close blood relatives, including ascendants, descendants, uncles, aunts, and cousins, are included in prohibited degrees. Similarly, close relatives by marriage, like ascendants and descendants of spouse of ascendants and descendants, and also brother's widow, are included within the prohibited relation. The marriage in violation of mental capacity requirement is voidable. A voidable marriage is marriage which subsists unless it is annulled by a decree of the court. The marriage is voidable if it is not consummated due to the impotency of the other party. The marriage is also voidable if the consent of the party to the marriage has been obtained by force or fraud as to the nature of ceremony or as to any material fact or circumstance concerning the other party. If the wife is pregnant at the time of marriage by a person other than the husband, then husband can also claim annulment of that marriage. Now, coming to Muslim law of marriage. In India, Muslims are governed by the uncodified Muslim law enjoined in the Holy Quran, the teachings of the Prophet, judicial decisions, and few legislative enactments. The Muslim Personal Law Shariat Application Act 1937 expressly directs courts in India to apply Muslim law to all Muslims in matters relating to family. A Muslim marriage called nikah is a contract made between two persons of opposite sexes. The Prophet described nikah as his sunnah. It is only the form of marriage that in Muslim law is contractual and non-ceremonial. Marriage as such in itself is a concept, is not merely a contract. Being contractual in form, it accords full contractual freedom to the parties to a proposed marriage. It enables the parties to settle their own special terms, specially to restrict each other's freedom in respect of those actions which Muslim law permits but do not make obligatory. Example, man's supposed freedom in respect of bigamy and divorce. Being a contract in form, the essential conditions for a valid marriage under Muslim law relates to formalities for a contract and valid capacity for a contract, that is, age and mental condition. The other equally essential conditions are marital status, religion of the parties, and pre-existing relationship between them, if any. In Sunni law, marriages are of three kinds, that is, valid, void, and irregular, while in Shia law, marriage can either be valid or void. The formalities required for a Muslim marriage are offer, that is ijab. The marriage should be proposed by one or on behalf of either party thereto. Acceptance, that is Qubul. The proposal should be accepted by or on behalf of the other party. And the third essential is consideration, and that is Meher, which is a sum of money in consideration of marriage the husband has agreed to pay to the wife. The parties contracting a marriage must be acting under free will and consent. The consent should be without fear or undue influence or fraud. The marriage being contractual in form, the parties to the marriage must have the capacity to enter into the contract, that is, must be major and of sound mind. However, for the purpose of marriage, majority is to be attained on attaining the age of puberty, which, unless otherwise proved to be attained earlier, is assumed to be attained at the age of 15. The provisions of the Prohibition of Child Marriages Act 2006 have overriding effect over the Muslim law of marriage relating to child marriages, and all the consequences which we have discussed in the earlier part of the module will apply also to Muslim child marriages. A Muslim wife is entitled to meher, which belongs absolutely to her. It is a sum of money or other property which the wife is entitled to receive from the husband in consideration of the marriage. The word consideration is not used in the sense in which it is used in the Indian Contract Act. It is an obligation imposed on the husband as a mark of respect to the wife. It is payable by the husband to the wife on marriage, either by an agreement between the parties, wherein it will be called specified dower, or by operation of law, wherein it will be called proper dower. It may either be prompt or defer. The prompt dower is payable on demand any time after marriage. The wife may refuse herself to her husband if the prompt dower is not paid on demand. The deferred dower is payable on the happening of the event specified. In either case, it is payable immediately on dissolution of marriage, either by death or by divorce. Muslim law strictly prohibits polyandry, that is, a woman having more than one husband at a time. A Muslim male is permitted to marry up to 4 wives, provided he treats them with equality. But if he is apprehensive that he will not be able to do justice between them and treat them with perfect equality, he is enjoined to marry one wife only. The fifth marriage of a Shia male is void. The marriage with the fifth wife of a Sunni male is irregular, and it becomes valid if he divorces any one of the earlier 4 or any one of them dies. The absolute incapacity makes certain person incapable to marry each other. These are: a person cannot marry his mother or grandmother how high soever, his daughter and granddaughter how low soever, his sister full, half or uterine, his niece or great niece how low soever, his aunt paternal or maternal or great aunt how high soever. Similarly, on the ground of affinity, a man is prohibited from marrying his wife's mother or grandmother how high soever, his wife's daughter and granddaughter how low soever, wife of his father or paternal grandfather how high soever, wife of his son or son's son or daughter's son how low soever. Muslim law prohibits a man to marry 2 women so related to each other by consanguinity, affinity, or fosterage that they could not have lawfully intermarried with each other if they have been of different sexes. Such a union will be called an unlawful conjunction. Thus, a Muslim cannot marry 2 sisters or an aunt and her niece. Such a marriage in Shia law is void, while in Sunni law it will be irregular. Irregularity to be removed by divorcing the wife who is a hindrance to this marriage or by her death. On dissolution of marriage by death and divorce, the Muslim wife is required to observe a period of seclusion called iddat. Iddat for death of the husband is 4 months and 10 days, or till the termination of the pregnancy, whichever is later. Iddat for divorce is 3 menstrual cycle, or if the wife is pregnant, then termination of pregnancy. The Christian Marriage Act 1872 lays down elaborate procedure for the solemnization of marriage. It is specifically provided under Section 4 of the Act that every marriage in India between persons, one or both of whom is or are a Christian or Christians, shall be solemnized in accordance with the provision of the Act, and any such marriage solemnized otherwise than in accordance with such provision shall be void. Thus, a Christian marriage not performed under the Act of 1872 will be void. A Christian marriage is usually solemnized by a minister of religion licensed under the Act. Registration of marriage in the register of marriages kept in the church called marriage register book is compulsory under the Act. Thus, a certificate of marriage should be issued for valid marriage. The marriage registrar is free to solemnize the marriage in such form of ceremonies as he thinks fit to adopt, though the presence of two witnesses other than the marriage registrar is essential. The Christian law does not allow bigamy in any form. A bigamous marriage is void marriage under the Act. The minimum age prescribed for marriage is 18 years for girls, and for boys it is 21 years. The consent of the parties, if they are of marriageable age, is essential. However, a minor can marry under the Christian law with the consent of his or her father or guardian or mother. But after the coming into force of the Prohibition of Child Marriages Act 2006, child marriage solemnized between two Christians is also avoidable marriage, and all the consequences which we have discussed earlier relating to child marriage will apply to them also. The provisions of Prohibition of Child Marriage Act 2006 discussed in the earlier part of the module are applicable to Christian marriage also, and such a marriage will be voidable. The Act of 1872 is only concerned with the form in which the marriage is to be solemnized and does not deal with objections to the validity of the marriage. Further, a person of unsound mind has no capacity to marry under the Act. The Christian law lays down that if either party to the marriage is an idiot or lunatic at the time of marriage, a decree of nullity can be obtained on that basis. This provision does not relate to post-marriage idiocy or lunacy. The marriage among near relations is prohibited and invalid under the prohibited degrees of consanguinity or affinity. The Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act was passed in 1865. It was based on the Matrimonial Causes Act of 1855 of England. With changes in circumstances, certain loopholes got highlighted. To remedy these defects, Parsi Marriage and Divorce Act 1936 was enacted, which was later on amended drastically by the 1988 amendments. The Parsis follow Zoroastrian religion. As such, the word Zoroastrian and Parsi are synonymous. Although the original faith allows conversion amongst Parsis, Zoroastrian religion is non-convertible religion. It was held that in India, conversion to Zoroastrianism religion is against usage and custom. The word Parsi means person who are descendant of original Persian immigrants, or persons whose father is or was a Parsi and mother an alien but admitted to Zoroastrian faith, or a Zoroastrian from Iran who was residing in India. In subsection 2 of section 52 of the 1936 Act, it is also made clear that even if a Parsi ceases to be a Parsi, he will be governed by the provision of this Act if his marriage was solemnized under this Act, is still subsisting, notwithstanding the fact that he is not a Parsi. The concept of marriage under Parsi law is a marriage is valid forever or never. Therefore, if a marriage is not valid for any reason whatsoever, it is null or void in the eyes of law. Being no marriage in the eyes of law, it is void ab initio, or that it did not come into existence from its inception. The marriage will be void if parties are within prohibited relationship of consanguinity or affinity, or if the necessary formalities of marriage have not been performed, or the male has not completed the age of 21 years and female has not completed the age of 18 years, or where either party to the marriage was impotent. Ashirvad ceremony is essential for validity of a Parsi marriage, which has to be performed by a priest in the presence of two witnesses. The child of void marriage will not be held illegitimate, and such a child is given legitimacy by section 3 subsection 2 of the Act. The Parsi law professes monogamy, and therefore the second marriage during the subsistence of the first marriage is prohibited under the Act. The second marriage being void, section 5 of the Act makes the second marriage penal and provides for penalty by subjecting the parties to the provision of section 494 and 495 of the Indian Penal Code. For bigamy, registration of marriage and certification of a Parsi marriage is mandatory under the Act. There is no statutory law of marriage applicable to Jewish marriage in India. It is the customary code of law that is applied. The three important requirements of Jewish marriage are free consent, mental capacity, and legal age for marriage. No marriage can take place without the consent of both parties, and a marriage without consent is void. Since consent is one of the key ingredients of marriage, the idiot, lunatic who are incapable of giving their free consent are barred from entering into the bond of marriage. Free consent, mental capacity, and legal age are not the only three decisive factors. The three is a must, but along with these three factors, there are other factors also which complements the three essential conditions required to enter into the bond of marriage. It is mandatory to perform the ceremony of betrothal and nuptial for the marriage contract to have legal validity. The groom is required to give the bride money called kasif, another object of equal validity, that too in presence of two witnesses. This ceremony is called Kosep Kiddushin. The ceremony of betrothal includes the certain pronouncement of words by the husband. This requires that a benediction is pronounced at the betrothal, invoking the Lord's praises, and alludes to the Lord that the betrothal parties are not permitted to enter into a conjugal relationship before nuptial. The nuptial is called chupa or nision and comprises the ritual of the groom taking the bride from her natal home to the bridal chamber. The ritual indicates that now she is under matrimonial authority. After the ceremony of nuptial, the marriage is considered to be valid irrespective of whether the marriage was consummated or not. Before the nuptial, the groom is required to make a commitment in writing which would entitle the wife to receive a certain sum from his estate in the case of his death or divorce, which is called katuba. This is an economic safeguard, just as meher in the case of Muslims. If the husband divorces his wife arbitrarily, this will serve as a token for the wife for her protection. The husband is duty bound to provide maintenance to her wife according to his status in life. He is bound to provide food, clothing, dwelling, and to establish conjugal cohabitation with the wife. He has to provide suitable medical care and nursing when she is sick, to protect her and to ransom her in the eventuality of her abduction and captivity, and to provide for her burial in case of her death. Similarly, the husband is entitled to the wife's earning to share her inheritance in property, donation, gift, except where it was given to her on the sole condition that it will be used by her only. Friends, along with these laws, which are personal in the sense that they are applicable on the basis of the religious community to which the parties to the marriage belong, there is a civil law which is called the Special Marriage Act. Under that act, any two persons belonging to same religion or to different religion can solemnize their marriage. The Act of 1954 is in fact an important milestone towards national integration and towards the attainment of constitutional goal of a uniform civil code. The Act was initially enacted in 1872 by the British government, which had provisions inadequate to meet the changed condition and scenario. Any two persons belonging to different religion or the same religion can get their marriage solemnized under the Act. Conditions necessary for a marriage are that neither party has a spouse living at the time of marriage, that neither party is incapable of giving a valid consent to the marriage due to unsoundness of mind, that the bridegroom has completed the age of 21 years and the bride the age of 18 years at the time of marriage, that the parties are not within the degrees of prohibited relationship. However, where a custom governing at least one of the parties permits a marriage between them, such marriage may be solemnized, notwithstanding that they are within the degrees of prohibited relationship. The age of parties to a marriage is an essential condition under the 1954 Act. Violation of age requirement results in a void marriage. The marriage is solemnized before the marriage registrar in the presence of three witnesses by signing the marriage register by parties to the marriage. No ceremonies or rites are required to be solemnized for the validity of the marriage. The marriage solemnized under any other religious law can be registered under this Act. Once so registered, Such marriage will be governed by the provision of the Act and not by the law in which it was solemnized. Parties who intend to get married under the Act shall give a notice in writing in the specified form to the marriage registrar 30 days before they want to marry. After marriage is solemnized, the certificate of marriage is entered in the marriage certificate book by the marriage officer. Certificate obtained under the Act is a conclusive evidence that a marriage was solemnized and all formalities respecting the signature of the witness has been complied with unless proved otherwise. Friends, from today's discussion, we found that different religious communities are governed by different laws in matters relating to marriage, some codified and others uncodified. The concept of marriage and its essential conditions varies from religion to religion. However, we can find a trend that rights of the women are protected in almost all the laws. Unlimited and unconditional polygamy, which has been permitted under the law, has now been totally prohibited. Thank you.